Hi there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another video. Gabi here, your favorite sassy big sister, ready to break down the law of assumption in a way that can work for you. Today, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into my own personal SP success story. I had so many amazing comments and questions on my last video that I really wanted to answer the subscribers' questions, but also provide you guys with some more context and some more tips and tricks, okay? So grab your coffee or wine, water, tea, no judgment here. Get ready for this incredible transformation. So really quickly before we jump in, just so you know, we are still giving away our free course on how to identify and remove your blocks. So if you are interested in that, check it out in the description box below. Also too, guys, I have an Assume Your Throne course. This course is amazing. I will tell you, it's got all of the practices that I used in order to actually grab my own SP, manifest my own SP, including engagement. And so that is available as well for sale. So go ahead and check that out in the course description box below. All right. So as a master NLP practitioner, an EFT coach, a mindset shifting coach, and a law of assumption coach here at Create Your Future, I'm so excited to dive deeper further in. Okay, so part two, so exciting. So like I said, after my last video, our comment section really blew up. There were so many questions around how long did it take when you started embodying for your SP to come in? Did you just affirm all day? What did your practice look like? How do you actually embody the version of you who's already committed? So today I'm going to give you the tips, tricks, and behind the scenes of how I did it. All right, so we're going to start with the biggest question. How long did it take? Well, for me, as soon as I started embodying the version of me who already had my desire, I started seeing shifts in about a month, okay? But I really want to be clear here. That's not my secret sauce, okay? Time is neutral. Time actually depends upon your own stories and your own beliefs. So if you keep saying this will take forever, then guess what? It will take forever. If you decide this is mine already, then the 3D has no choice but to rearrange. So the better question really isn't how long did it take? It's how quickly can I decide who I am? Because once you flip your inner story, the outer world is already starting to catch up, okay? Keep in mind, I did what many of you do when my SP first said to me, I don't love you and I don't see a future with you, okay? I did the traditional normal thing, which is I cried. After he left, I cried. I let it all out. I hung out with my girlfriends. I talked about all the awful things that I could think of, which weren't really a lot about the situation. And then I was like, you know what? No, I'm a conscious creator. I've been practicing this theory, this law of assumption theory for decades. And so I should be able to do this. I should be able to manifest my SP back. And I did what everyone does, and I went straight to techniques. Remember when you first start on your journey and you realize, oh, there's all these techniques and people have all these amazing success stories. If I do this technique, then all of a sudden my manifestation showed up. So that's what I did. I dove into techniques. I dove into affirming all day. I dove into scripting all day. Like I mentioned before, I had tons of journals, a stack of journals that was just back to back, literally page on page of scripting. I set timers on my phone so that I would remember to affirm. I did the whole, put his name under a glass of water and then drink the whole water. Like I did all of those things. And it wasn't until I started coaching that I was reminded not only of how powerful I was, but also that techniques are just tools. They are not for you to get your manifestation. They're to help you move your mindset, right? Help you to move your inner story into who you already are, experiencing that loving relationship, experiencing that job, experiencing that abundance, experiencing that amazing health, right? So when that clicked for me, I realized, first of all, techniques are a tool. And if I want to hang a picture in my house, I can go out to my toolbox and I can use a nail and a hammer. I could use a nail and a screwdriver, because you can use that to turn around as a hammer. I could use double-sided hanging tape. I could use Velcro. I could use a screwdriver or a screw instead of a nail. There are all these tools that you can use to literally get to the same end, right? To the same result, hanging the picture up, manifesting your desire. So if these were just tools, then I could pick what I wanted to do. I could pick what was going to help me the best way possible in the moment to still get the end result. And so I started thinking through, okay, so all of these techniques, what do they have in common besides me being the common variable here? But what else do they have in common? Well, they're all used to change your inner story, to change the thoughts that you're having about who you are, right? So I said, okay, I have a logical brain. It was very challenging for me when I first started this process to think from I'm in no contact and broken up with what he had told me, right? At the very end, that was our last conversation. I don't love you, don't see a future with you. So no contact, broken up, had that thought, that conversation kept going over in my head of like, well, this is what he said, this is what he said. So I had that. And then for me to go from that in my mind to we're living together, we're in this amazing committed relationship, was challenging for me when I first started. So what I decided to do instead was to just focus on who would I be if I was living with him and we were in a committed relationship? How would I show up differently than how I'm showing up right now in the 3D as a single heartbroken individual, right? Well, a lot of things would be different. One, I wouldn't be heartbroken. I would be content. I would be calm. I would be my nervous system would be regulated. I would be thinking about things that are important to me, such as, projects and things like that, but not necessarily always having my relationship and my SP on the forefront of my thoughts because we're good. So if we're good, then there's no reason for me to constantly be thinking about that person or constantly be thinking about the relationship. There's nothing to solve. There's nothing to troubleshoot, right? Because everything's good. I would be thinking about how I feel desired. I feel beautiful all the time because I have this partner who reminds me of how beautiful I am, and he reminds me of how much he desires me, right? So these were all the things that I kept telling myself, okay, well, that's what I would be experiencing, right? Those are the thoughts that I would be having. That is the internal dialogue or internal story that I would be telling myself. And I realized, okay, well, if I would be that different, then it isn't about using a technique to tell myself he's changing. It's about me reminding myself of how different I would be than how I'm currently showing up in my 3D reality. And so from that, I took, okay, well, why don't I remind myself of how I would be? Because again, we don't manifest what we want. We manifest what we believe to be true for ourselves, which means who we think we are. If you think you are one person, and for instance, if you think you're sassy, if you think you're silly, if you think you're popular, if you think you have a lot of friends, if you think everyone likes you, and you show up in the world in a way that supports those thoughts, you are going to be outgoing, probably an extrovert. You're probably going to be involved in a lot of different groups or activities. You're probably also going to laugh a lot and have a lot of fun because you see yourself as being silly, you see yourself as being sassy, and you see yourself as being someone that everyone likes you. So you're not going to show up opposite of that in your world. You are going to actually present yourself that way, and people will then start reflecting it back to you as well. So the same thing goes for creating the version of you who's in a committed relationship. So you have to start presenting yourself that way, right? So you're showing up more confident in your world. You're showing up more content and secure. Your head's a little bit higher. You're showing up feeling desired. And in those moments, that is really and truly what you are aiming for. That is you embodying the version of who you are, because you are showing up as confident, as more secure. You're showing up as present in your work because you aren't distracted by trying to figure out how to problem solve and troubleshoot the current 3D situation of your relationship, right? You're showing up as being someone that your friends are, oh, wow, I love her relationship or his relationship. Like, I want something like that, you know? So you yourself are presenting differently because you yourself see yourself as the version of you who's already in that committed relationship. Okay. And that really leads into, one of the other questions that I got quite a bit in the comment section was around affirmations. Did you just affirm over and over? No, I didn't sit in a corner chanting like a monk. What I used was more of an asking an intention technique. Okay. So like I said, instead of forcing it with an affirmation, like he loves me, he's madly obsessed with me, he wants everything to do with me, etc., I'd ask myself, what would it feel like if we were already living together? What would it feel like if we were already in this amazing committed relationship? What would it feel like if he were already my fiance? And that question automatically dropped me into the feeling state where my magic was. So my intentions were like, I love the feeling of safety that I feel in our relationship. It's so natural for me to be his person. Do you see the difference? One is forcing and the other is flowing. Okay. And that really is important because manifesting is something you're doing all the time, whether you acknowledge it or are aware of it or not. So if you're seeing things outside of you that you don't like, you've manifested that. If you're seeing things outside of you that you do like, you've manifested that. You are constantly manifesting. In every now moment, you are manifesting based on what you are thinking about who you are and what is true. That is why there are a lot of things that happen in this world en route, but it's all manifesting. For instance, if you believe you always are going to hit green lights and you're always able to go and there's no traffic for you, then guess what shows up in your world, right? So when you are believing and accepting your power, your ability to manifest, and you know that you are constantly manifesting, and again, we manifest who we are, what we believe to be true, right? Then what happens is you start realizing that the quickest way for you to manifest your desire is to identify who you are as already having your desire. Okay. Now, Neville does this so simply in his SATS visualizations, where he's got plenty of stories where he talks about how he visualized receiving a phone call and getting passage on the boat with his family. Okay. There was absolutely no way that was going to happen. It was an impossibility. And then he imagined receiving that phone call. But in the imaginal act, the SATS imaginal act, he embodied the version of him who was receiving that experience, who was having that experience, right? He was able to recall it through visualization, okay? Not everybody has a great visualization brain. I don't. I'm a very logical thinker. So for me, the asking an intention technique is the equivalent of what Neville was doing. Because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You have to realize that you have core beliefs already set in place. You have a blueprint that you have that really has been drawn from everyone around you and how you have perceived the world to create who you are. Okay. And so for me, I have a very firm belief and always have had a firm belief that I can do anything that I put my mind to as long as I problem solve or process it. And so for me, instead of visualizing, I was like, well, how do I do the same thing? How do I do the same exact thing? How do I get myself to think about who I would be having this experience? How do I get myself to identify the thoughts that I would be having, the feelings that I would be having, the actions that I would be engaging in if I had this experience right now? And for me, it was questioning, well, who am I experiencing this? And once I asked that question, I was able to start really conjuring up, oh, I would be thinking that. Oh, I would definitely be thinking about how, I'm so relieved that I am not a part of would be thinking about how, gosh, it's so nice to be able to come home no matter what kind of day I've had and just be unconditionally accepted and loved for who I am. Or I would be thinking about, you know what? I love the fact that I can just be and my partner can just be both in the same space and we just love and support each other. We don't have to say a word and it just emanates from us. So you think about who you would be having that experience, right? And as you could see, I didn't just put what I would be thinking and feeling, but also the physical aspect of that, right? Us sitting next to each other as we're just chilling, as we're just decompressing from our day. We're just sitting next to each other, doom scrolling on Instagram, right? Like, what would you be doing? What would you be thinking? What would you be feeling? Okay. When you've identified that, that becomes that inner story for yourself. That becomes the version of you who's already in that committed relationship. And then it's just a matter of returning to that, right? Identifying that, returning to that, because that's your state. That's the state of the version of you who's in this relationship. And so you want to embody the version of you, right? Embody the state, right? And that's the state of the wish fulfilled, meaning you are experiencing the state of what it would be to have your desire, right? To experience it. And so you're returning to the state of the wish fulfilled. So you're returning over and over to that state. And how do you return? Well, for me, I did the questioning technique. I would recognize when I'd be thinking about my SP, or people would ask me about how things are going, or if I'd heard from him, which my family did quite a bit because he was very involved with my family. And I would in the 3D, my response would be, you know what, like, everything's working out for me and thanks for asking. I'm not ready to talk about it, but when I am, I will. Thanks so much. And left it there. In my head mentally, at first, I would start to spiral. I would start to be like, oh gosh, like, has it been that long? He hasn't even reached out. It hasn't, I'm not seeing any movement. It's been a really long time. Oh, it's been, at this point, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, right? And I could do that. And I did do that at the very beginning, those first couple of months. And then after I realized how this works for me, right? How to embody the version of me who already has my desire, then I immediately, as soon as those thoughts came into my mind of, oh, it's been this long, or how long is it going to take, or I can't believe, and my frustrations, and trust me, I was there. I have been through this step by step, just like you all are going through, okay? I have been there. And in those moments of frustration, I could allow myself to either continue spiraling, continue doing a negative path, continue going down the thought path of what I don't want, and have those patterns, right? And that would set my mood for the rest of the day. Or I could decide, you know what? That is not what I want. What I want is to be in a committed relationship. How do I get to what I want? Well, I have to embody that. I have to tell myself who I am. And I have to tell myself that version of me is more true than any version of me in the 3D. The version of me that already has that committed loving relationship is more true than the version of me in my current 3D. And therefore, this version is pushing out. And that's literally what I would do. If I would get frustrated, if I would start thinking about, oh, I'm not seeing any movement, etc., I would remind myself, I've already decided I am the version of me who's experiencing this desire. This version is true. The 3D version is just a reflection of old thoughts. One of the things that I used to tell myself, and I still do to this day, is what I'm thinking about today manifests for my tomorrow. Now, I want to be very clear here. I am not saying that if you think about it today, it will absolutely manifest for you tomorrow. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is I am a firm believer in self-soothing in order to regulate your nervous system. And so for me, I had to think about, what do I already know to be true about the law of assumption? Well, I know that what I put my awareness on persists, right? I know that what I resist persists. And I also know that at the end of the day, I have to keep reminding myself of who I am in order for my manifestation to show up. And so if I keep thinking this is who I am, if I keep putting into my head the idea and the belief that, okay, no matter what happens in my 3D, if I keep my focus on this manifestation, if I keep my focus on who I am experiencing this manifestation, then that is what will show up. It will have to push out. It will manifest in my 3D reality. And so that is how I kind of got through those tougher times, is by reminding myself what I think about today manifests for my tomorrow. What I think about today is showing up tomorrow. What I think about today is showing up tomorrow. Do I want this to show up in my reality? No. Then I'm not going to think about it anymore. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to tell myself it's old news. I don't have to worry about it. Okay. A couple of other tips and tricks, some NLP magic, really, because your subconscious really does love sensory input. So here are a couple of things that I did. I pulled out a picture of us in one of my favorite moments, and I taped that picture to my bathroom mirror. And every time I walked by that picture, I would touch it and I would say, I love that man. I love our relationship. And it just reminded me of all the positives and all the things that I love about my partner. It reminded me of all the things that I love about the relationship that I have with him. And it would bring me back to those amazing, amazing moments, which allowed me then to really and truly more frequently throughout my day return to the state. Okay. Some of the other things that I also did is whenever I would pass by like places we frequented or the place where we had our first date, instead of feeling sad, instead of telling myself, oh, that's where we had our first date, and then like feeling bad that, oh, we haven't been on a date in a while because we're broken up and blah, blah, blah. Instead of going down that storyline, instead, I would remind myself, oh, I loved our first date. We had such a cute first date. Like I remember da-da-da and da-da-da, and I love that. And I love that we just clicked. Or I love that that was where we started and just left the story there. You don't have to go through and finish the story to your current 3D. You can remind yourself of your past experiences. This is kind of like revising. You just leave off the current 3D part of it, right? So I would remind myself those types of things. The other thing is that I would also have a lot of conversations with myself. You know, I would have those inner conversations with myself, and it would be a lot of, I've already decided this. Because I've decided, it's already done. I am not going to continue thinking that I can't have it because I know I can. I can have anything I want. Okay. So that was some other, I guess, like techniques that could support you, that helped me. But it was a lot of me reminding myself, I am powerful. I've already decided this, and therefore I'm not going to have this conversation with you again. I'm not going to argue with myself again over this. And so that is something that I will say a lot of my clients really do find comfort in, because they are able to talk to that little ego voice in your mind, in your head, and able to really say, you know what? No, my God self has got this, and I am done hearing about it from you. I'm done doing this argument back and forth dance. Okay. Your subconscious, it really doesn't know the difference between real and imaginary. So you can really do a couple of great things with your senses. Like I was mentioning, you know, sight. There's other things you could do. You could, you know, you could think about this, like if you've got one of their t-shirts or something, smell, you can use that to recall. But really, it's all about using whatever technique you can to program yourself into the experience. So that reality, right? The reality where you're engaging in experiencing your desire. Okay. Embodiment. So this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They think embodiment means action, like texting differently, dressing differently, making vision boards, setting up another plate at your table. No. Embodiment is an identity shift. It's who you are being, not what you're doing. So again, I'm going to go back to that questioning and intention technique. I asked myself every day, multiple times throughout the day, how would the version of me who's already in a committed, loving relationship think? How would she feel? How would she present herself? She's calm. She's not checking her phone every 10 seconds. She's confident because she knows she's chosen. She's radiant because she walks into a room like she's already loved. Her thoughts sound like, of course he's mine. That's not even a question, right? So thinking through those things, like how you're showing up, how you're presenting yourself, but not necessarily the action piece to that, right? It's about your inner posture, not pretending, not faking, just deciding this is who I am now. And then your feelings, your body language, your energies, everything, your thoughts, it all starts to align with who you are. And that pushes out. And then it's reflected back to you, because everyone is you pushed out. It's reflected back to you in your friends and your family and your coworkers and your boss and your SP. And your SP, the version of your SP that shows up, is the version of your SP that matches who you are in a committed relationship. Okay? So let's put this all together. 1, stop obsessing over time. Decide who you are, experiencing that manifestation, and then let the 3D catch up. Okay? Ask and intend. Instead of forcing affirmations, ask yourself, what would I be thinking if I was experiencing this right now? What would I be feeling like if I was experiencing this right now? Okay. Use sensory NLP. Think about your 5 senses. What would you see? What would you taste? What would you touch? What would you hear? What would you smell? Okay. Now, all you have to do is recall those or think about those, and that will convince your subconscious mind. It only knows now, because your only present hour moment is now. And then lastly, embody the version of who you are, right? Not with action, but with confidence, self-concept, and energy. Your thoughts, right? Your thoughts. So, just to wrap this up, I didn't chase, I didn't beg, I didn't affirm like a robot. I embodied, and that is why everything in my world shifted. That is why my SP showed up in a complete 180. That is why I went from hearing, I don't love you, I don't see a future with you, to us being engaged and planning the rest of our lives together and knowing and saying to each other frequently that we are each other's persons. And we know that. We know that this is what we want. So, all right, I want you to step into your power. If you love this video, I want you to hit that like button. If this helped you or resonated with you, I want you to drop a heart in the comments. Also, I want to know that you are claiming your engagement energy too. So drop me a ring down there as well, because I love to see those. Don't forget to subscribe for more sassy, no-nonsense coaching. If you have a comment, drop that below. Tell me what you're manifesting right now. I love reading your comments and your questions. Stay fierce, stay fabulous, and remember, you are the creator of your own reality. And don't forget, when you embody it, there is no choice but for your 3D to conform. I'll see you in the next video.